Good evening, all. Someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right, thank you. Welcome to EDL 740 Zoom session for week 1, Introduction to Graduate Research. I'm Nelson Coulter, and I have the great good fortune to be the lead learner in this learning journey that we're going to take for this term. Most of these sessions that we'll have will unfold somewhat like this. I'll have a few comments, and then I'll take questions from you. That's really my biggest interest, is I really want to answer the questions that you may have. And then you can put questions in the chat box. You should be able to see that as well. And then what I want you to know is this is not going to be a lecture format. I'm not going to be reading slides to you. I'll share some thoughts, and mostly I'll comment on some of the things that you've been posting in your responses to your assignments. But mostly I want it to be about me answering the questions that you may have, or us having conversations about research and its implications for our work in the day-to-day setting of schools. I became habituized, I guess, if that's, you can look that up in your dictionary, maybe you can find it. I'm very insistent on stopping and starting on time. I suspect some of you actually may have another Zoom session up against this one at 7 o'clock. So I won't let it run. I won't let it run any longer than 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. my time. I have not seen all of the responses to the discussion forum, so I don't know where all of you are. I do know we have you scattered across the United States of the ones I've seen come in so far. If this class is like most of the ones that I've had here at LSU Shreveport, we'll also have some from different places around the planet other than the United States. If you care, there's about 54 of us learners in the class, and it's scattered. Quite a few of you are education leadership students, MEDL. We do have some MEDCI, curriculum instruction folks, and I know of at least one doctoral student. Welcome, Cricket. Dr. Oldenburg, soon to be. Congratulations to you. You kind of took this course on the back end of that work, did it? But anyway, my focus with you all during this term is going to be from the perspective of school leadership. Now, even those of you that are in the C&I program, I know most of you are probably interested in sharpening your skills, your instructional skills, and learning more about the teaching learning process, which is great. But I suspect that all of you are if you're not already seen as leaders on your campuses or on your work site, you're going in that direction. So I like to look at all this work that we'll be doing this term through the lens of school leadership. And as you can see, if you've looked at the syllabus already, I frame everything around the ELCC standards and framework. And I'll tell you why I do that, is most of you are headed to some sort of a credentialing exam once you get your degree or toward the end of your degree. And almost all those exams, and it doesn't matter what state you're in, I live, in fact, I'm beaming to you from West Texas right now. My wife and I live out on our ranch in West Texas. I don't even live in Shreveport. But all those credentialing exams, regardless of what state or country you're in, they're almost always tied to the standards. And the standards that we happen to use at LSUS are the ones, basically they're the national standards for the United States, and they're called the ELCC standards. Some people refer to them as CAPE. But I keep tying those things to you, as you've already, those of you that have done assignments can already see. Every assignment, I ask you to frame it, to ping it against those standards, because I want your mind to begin thinking in that kind of framework. Those are the 7 standards, lenses, if you will, through which school leaders view and practice their work. If you haven't read the syllabus, please do that carefully. I try to craft it in a readable fashion, and believe it or not, I try to keep be fairly parsimonious with the words, but it's kind of hard for college professors to do that. But, and I try to make it reasonably understandable to the layperson. As you've discovered, I think already, Dr. Perry, when he brought me on board a year ago, one of my first questions to him was, do I have to use textbooks? And he said no. So I've been given permission to run without textbooks, which is, I love it. There's a world of information, a world of knowledge at our fingertips. And so I'll be feeding that information to you through open sources through the entire term. In relation to the graduate research, really what we're talking here is the science, researchers or scientists, kind of an interesting note. I read not too long ago, I mean, it's been a couple or 3 years ago, the author of a book that I was reading made note of the fact that 90% of all scientists that have ever lived are alive and working today. Think about that. 90% of all scientists that have ever lived are creating new knowledge today. So no wonder we got so much stuff at our fingertips. But we're not, here at LSU Shreveport, we're not deploying the intro to grad research in the typical thesis building kind of fashion. We're not requiring you to do a study. Our goal is to try to help you become knowledgeable consumers of research, particularly research around education. But as you'll gather from being with me over the next 7 weeks, that I'm sort of eclectic in my thinking, if you will. I think that you and I, as school people, have a lot to learn from the other professional fields, and even beyond those professional fields, that we can use and apply effectively in the classroom to help our learners optimize their learning opportunity. Well, what I want to do is try to help you through this process. What I want to do is try to help you become very critical and skeptical consumers of research. Skeptical, but not cynical. And there's a fine line of difference there. But I want you to get in the habit of viewing every piece of research that comes across your desk or in front of your eyes with a skeptical and critical eye. But also, through this process, you're going to learn some of the standard structural features of social science research, which is what we're involved in the field of education. If you've looked at the Moodle module already, then you see that how I've got it, the week one, how I've got it structured. At the top there, under a banner, it's called Learning Enhancements. And those are the things that are not graded. Those are the things that I think will be helpful to you in this process, and this Zoom sessions is an example of that. You'll also find a banner there that says Learning Task, and I stack 6 assignments for you every week. And I know how busy you are, and I've been in classes where I would go through a 15-week semester with a professor and really not be sure it's coming next minute or the next week. So I try very hard to make sure that my courses are structured very consistently for you. And it'll also help you budget your time, because most of you have full-time jobs, I'm aware of that, and families and faith house responsibilities and all kinds of stuff. So I try to structure it exactly the same way. No, I do structure it exactly the same way. Someone has their mic open. If you don't mind, please mute it. Learning task 1 through 3 every week is me feeding you some content that I want you to digest or metabolize. And then in each of those learning tasks, you'll see a Google form in which you'll record your responses. There's a button on there, I think, that gives you the opportunity to make sure you get a receipt, if that helps you, your comfort level, to know that it landed safely. But if you ever have a doubt or a question, if the technology's not performing like you want, email me. and ask me if I got your response to learning task 2.7 or 2.6 or whatever. And I'll get back to you quickly. Those of you that I've had in class before, welcome back, by the way. I'm so thankful you returned. But those of you that have had me in class before, I think will probably attest for everyone else that I'm pretty responsive as college professors go. If you reach out to me by email or in the Moodle message system, you're going to hear back from me very quickly. Just so you'll know, some of us are on different time zones. Most of us are in the central time zone, but a large part of my academic work happens between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. So if you send me something after 9 p.m. at night, you're not going to hear from me till probably 3:30 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I like to go to bed with the chickens, and I like to get up with the chickens. The learning tasks 4 and 5 every week is going to be where you go out and you're looking for actual studies, and I want to emphasize that for you. You're looking for studies, and that's why in the syllabus and also in that first article, the Laverty article that you've looked at, if you've looked at it so far, those databases that exist where you can go dig for academic research. I'm not looking, what you don't want to do is go look and find somebody's blog post, even though I'm a blogger. You're looking for authentic, actual studies that people conducted along those particular areas. You'll notice also in Learning Tasks 4 and 5 that I specify some topics in there that are related to an ELCC standard. So in week 1, it's the ELCC standard related to vision. And so there are several topics there. I'm trying to help you. In the words of Robert Morazzano, or the language of Robert Morazzano, I'm helping you with a graphic organizer. But I'm helping you frame your thinking in the way you're searching for some research that is of interest to you. I want you to look for and find the things that you think are of interest to you and would be helpful to you in your current work. And then finally, Learning Task 6 every week is our discussion forum. Most weeks, it'll be just 2 posts by me. One of them will probably land in your, either in your Moodle Messenger or your email early on Monday morning, and the other one will usually land on Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning. Sometimes I might pitch 3 at you, but if you just monitor your LSU email, you're not going to miss any of them. And on those, I try to post prompts for your response that are connected to what we're studying that particular week. And also, almost every week, I'll make you go back and take a look at the collective learning of the whole class from the previous week and find something there. I'll give you a prompt about that. Which brings me to mind. That's in the learning enhancements in week 2. You won't see them in week 1. In week 2, you'll see a learning enhancement that's titled Collective Learning from week 1. And in that, I will link for you the responses of the entire class to Learning Task 1, 1.1, and to Learning Task 1.2, and to Learning Task 1.3, because really, any classroom, yours included, students learn as much or more from each other as they ever do from the teacher. And so it's your charge and mine as effective instructors is to create the conditions that optimize the learning. It's not necessarily important who is the trigger for the learning or the cause or the repository of the knowledge. What's important is that learning occurs, and it occurs in an optimum rate. In week 7, we will not have a Zoom session. In week 7, you'll have a final exam instead, but don't worry. I long ago forsook the belief that I was the possessor of the right answers. My job, I think, is to try to craft engaging learning tasks for you, and then try to gauge how much you've learned. And so the final exam, and I'll show it to you week 3 or week 4 early enough. But if you look at the syllabus, it already tells you what's on the final exam. I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you what your top 10 learnings from the whole course have been, and you're going to have to also put together the framework, the nuts and bolts pieces of a research proposal. Although you're not going to have to conduct the actual research, I want you to think through the process that a researcher goes through in order to craft a study. And then I'll ask you to ping your learning against the ELCC standards, of course. So it's not a terribly painful thing, and it's certainly not something that you have to study for. It's even something that you can begin thinking about and working on right now. If you, even this week, as you're going through the week 1 learning task, either in your mind or recording it somehow, you can be deciding, okay, what was the most important thing I learned here from this process this week? The weekly modules, I will open them no later than 7 a.m. on Monday mornings. Typically, I'll open them up on Sunday mornings, but not always. But they'll never open up later than Monday mornings. And all assignments are due on Sunday evening at 11:30. I would say midnight, but the LSU IT people shut the whole system down from 11:30 p.m. to midnight every week, and so you couldn't get in there even if you wanted to. So the 11:30 p.m. Sunday night is the deadline for assignment submission, except on week 7, and it's going to be Saturday night that week. And here's why. LSUS requires me to post the grades for the course on the Monday following the end of the term at 10 a.m. So as you can expect, I'll need all your work in by Saturday evening on week 7, so I can spend all my day Sunday of that week reading through your thinking and writing and responses. Zoom sessions are going to be each Tuesday evening at 6, but not week 7. I will be recording these sessions. Did I record? Am I recording? Yeah, I'm recording the session. I'll record the sessions and I'll post it if you want to go back and look at it. I can't imagine anybody would want to listen to my stuff twice, but it'll be posted there because many of you have other obligations and sometimes you can't get into the session. I understand. Whatever we discuss and talk about here, you're accountable for, but as you know, it's probably not going to be on a test. The Zoom, the collective learning bucket each week, I've already mentioned that to you. You're going to submit your responses for all of learning tasks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in Google Forms. And so then I'll turn those back to you once I get them graded at the end of each week, so you can peek back and you can see what your fellow learners are saying and thinking. And also for those of you that are headed into school leadership, school principals and school superintendents, of which I have been both, are always looking for talent. So some of you need to be on the lookout for people that you want to hire one of these days when you become a campus principal or school superintendent. The grading, you can look at the rubrics on the syllabus. I've chosen to go with a fairly simple format for grading, and I've been greatly influenced by Dr. Doug Reeves out of Harvard in that regard, although my system is not exactly like the one he recommends, but it's close. I'm not going to assign you something that I don't think is important. If I assign something to you, I want you to digest it, analyze it carefully, and give me some evidence of that you put some critical analysis into that information, that whatever form it comes in. I try to mix the methods, the media in which I feed stuff to you. You see that probably already in week 1. Almost always you're going to get a document of some kind. I always try to find a video that I think meets the needs of the topic of the week, and that I think is useful and helpful, informative. Sometimes I'll pitch at you a slide deck that someone has created, and sometimes, or maybe a podcast. So you're going to get content coming at you in multi formats, and that's with malice of forethought on my part. The APA citations, that's the American Psychological Association citation methodology. That's the standard technical language that those of us that do research in the social sciences and medicine, in the hard sciences, even chemistry and physics use it as well. It's a pretty standard mathematics. It's a pretty standard language, if you will. Basically, it's a convention that we agree to attribute work to people. And I've dropped a learning enhancement piece there in week one. No, I take that back. That's in the pre-week one portion of your Moodle module. That's going to be very helpful. What I want you to hear from me is this, and every time you do an assignment, I'm going to ask you for the appropriate APA citation. I'm not a purist as far as APA goes. And by the way, if you're an English teacher, you're probably used to citations in the MLA format, but you'll get used to this one. What's important, it's really four pieces. It's who created that content, what year was it created, what is the title of it, and where can I find it? Where can another learner find that content? In other words, where did you find it? If it's on a website or online, you need to put the URL for it. If you dug it out of the stacks in the library, then you need to show me the publisher of the book or the journal from which it came from. So those really are the main four components, and you don't have to write those and remember them because I gave it to you in the Moodle module. Every week we got a sandbox forum, and for Q&A, I'll monitor that, but if you look in that sandbox forum, and I'll bounce it down week to week to week so it follows us as we go through the 7-week term. But if someone in there is struggling with something, for instance, an APA citation, I can promise you somebody's going to post a question there about an APA citation. If you know the answer, answer it. Every one of us has a license to answer the questions that we see pop up in that sandbox forum if we know the answer. Every week on the in learning task 1, 2, and 3, I've got a question in there, and it says, what was the least beneficial element of this content to you? Don't make the mistake, and some of you already have, of dodging that question. I ask that very purposefully because I'm trying to engage your compare and contrast mode of your brain. And on one of the prompts, I asked you for what your top 3 takeaways were, and then I asked you what the most beneficial or the piece of the content that was the newest, freshest learning for you. And then I asked you what part of that content was the least beneficial. Do not try to say to me, "Oh, it was all good. I learned from it." I'm not gonna accept that happily. In fact, in the first week or so, if you try that to me, I'm probably going to make a comment in the grade and say, don't dodge this question, and I'll probably reduce it to your grade by a point, but I'll give you a chance to do it over if you want to. Week 1, overview of educational research, and we're focusing on ELCC Vision 1, Standard 1 Vision. Week 2, we'll move to crafting research questions. We'll get a little more into the nuts and bolts of trying to come up with a quality question to do research around. And then we'll be focusing on ELCC Standard 2, which has to do with student achievement. Week 3, we'll study about qualitative tools and methods. And by the way, this is just a general overview, way out in the stratosphere view of research. Most of us that, like myself, that have a doctoral degree most of us have had either 12 to 18 hours of research tool courses in that process. So you and I are just kind of brushing along the top of the concept of graduate research, but it'll help you. It'll make you smarter. Week 4, we'll move to quantitative tools and talk about those, and we'll focus on ELCC Standard 4, which has to do with collaboration and community. Week 5, we'll move to literature reviews, and then we'll be focusing on ELCC Standard 5, which has to do with integrity and fairness and ethical decision making. Week 6, we'll move to questionnaires, surveys, and interviews. and focus on ELCC Standard 6, which I call contextual astuteness. But you don't find that particular phrasing in the actual standards, but it's understanding the political lay of the land and being able to navigate in that realm. Believe it or not, there's politics involved at the schoolhouse as well. Week 7, ask me how I know. Week 7, theories of learning will be the focus, and that'll be much more specific, moving the concepts and the thinking of graduate research. And I'm going to try to pull you more specifically toward the teaching of the learning processes in that week 7. And then ELCC 7 has to do with internship and mentorship. And got the final exam on week 7. 7 weeks are going to fly by in a hurry, I'm telling you. So let me open the floor now. I think I've already got one question. If you decide to ask me a question verbally, speak loudly, please, into your microphone. I've known for over a decade, even back when I was a high school principal, I've known I needed hearing aids, and my wife kept saying, "Why don't you get hearing aids?" And I said, "No, high school principals don't need to hear everything." So I just haven't gone to the audiologist to get hearing aids, but if you'll speak loudly if you're going to ask me a question verbally, orally, so I can understand you. Okay, Cricket. I'm looking at the chat box now. How do you want us to indicate italics? Cricket, one of the features of Google Forms is it won't take italics and won't transmit italics. So I understand that. Don't worry about it. And if you try to use the underline convention also, it'll drop those off as well. The main thing I'm looking for on those APA citations is that four-pronged element that I mentioned to you earlier. Who created the content? What year was it created in? What is the title of the content? And where can it be found by another eager learner? Anna, welcome back, by the way, Anna. You answered the question. Good for you. Thanks for your help. Let's see. Other questions? Either out loud or let me get my notes off the screen here where I can see you. Surely someone has a question. You can even ask me about my cows and chickens if you want to.
What kind of cows do you have?
Oh, my wife and I, my lovely bride of 42 years, I call her Mo. We raise Angus cattle. Our ranch is out between Lubbock and Abilene, Texas, out toward the bottom of the panhandle of Texas, more or less. She's the ranch manager, and I'm the head cowboy.
There you go.
Amanda wants to know about the internship. Let's see, Amanda, you're in my internship class. The internship thing, you have to get 60 hours each time you take the intern class. Most of you have entered our program within the last year, which means you will have to take EDL 716 4 times. And you have to get 16 hours of internship hours every time. You got to get yourself a mentor on your campus or your work site. Sometimes we have folks that don't work in school, so we have to flex around a little bit to make that happen. But again, believe it or not, Amanda, it's all tied to those ELCC standards. What we ask you to do is get 60 hours of leadership type experience in anything in the world that you can tie to those 7 ELCC standards. So it can be as mundane and unpleasant as supervising a junior high basketball game, or it can be something as enriching and lovely as being the head presenter at faculty professional development. So it runs the whole gamut. Yeah, Lindsay, welcome back. Good to see you, hear you, I guess, know you again. And Laura's almost to the finish line. Good for you. Other questions you have for me about graduate research class or other things? On learning task 4, I'm having a hard time finding an adequate study. Any recommendations? Rita, I don't know if you've been looking at the databases available to you through the Noel Library, or if you've been looking through the Google Scholar database, and there are a few others. Eric is what you all are all going to come across is you're going to find a study that you think you want, and then they're going to try to make you pay money for it. So I don't want you paying money for studies unless you got too much money on your hands. I'm trying to create a learning environment where you can access the information and knowledge you want without it cost you any additional money. But so Rita, to answer your question, if I were you, and for instance I were trying to find something on the topic of grading, then I would just be modifying those word searches. I'd keep pecking away at different word combinations or keywords to try to find a study. Most of you are going to be able to find studies as old, 50-year-old studies. And there's nothing wrong with those. And one of the videos I'll show you later in the course, the professor that does the video talks about those iconic studies. Some of them, we call them seminal. They were so big and so important at the time, everybody reads them. But generally, you probably want to keep focused on studies that have been done within the last 10 years. If I were you, I'd be looking for those kinds of things. Hope that helped, Rita. Just keep changing your word search, your keywords, until you come across something that is interesting enough for you to put your note in. Amanda, you should have received from me on the documentation of the internship hours. You should have received from me. And if you didn't, I want you to email me and let me know. But you should have in your LSU email an email from me with a link to a document that only you and I can write in, a shared document. It's a Google Doc. But in that serves as your syllabus. But then when you get down below toward the bottom of that document, you can see where your log is, and that's where you log your hours for the internship. Juana, do we find your own mentors? Yes. Whatever campus you're on, what you need to do is try to find a mentor. Typically, it's an assistant principal or a principal. That doesn't necessarily have to be. Sometimes, occasionally, it could be a department chair. And some places have deans of students as well. But someone that's in the school leadership role on your campus or at your work site. Occasionally, we have people that work at central office that are in the program. So obviously, you don't have a principal there. So you would be trying to seek out an assistant superintendent. From time to time, we even have people that are working in the private sector. So if that's your issue, let me know and we'll figure out a way to flex on that. But yes, you need to be finding a mentor at your work site to serve as your on-site. And mainly that person, we don't give them the homework assignments, but what we ask that person to do is meet with you regularly and help you debrief your learning. That's a powerful process when you engage in reflective dialogue with a knowledgeable other that can help you fashion and shape your thinking in relation to school leadership. Rita asked for the internship, do we use the same person all 4 systems? Well, Rita, that typically that happens. But from time, believe it or not, people move around. Speaking as an old superintendent, as an old principal, and former assistant principal. Assistant principals come and go, principals come and go, superintendents come and go. Usually the superintendents don't come and go fast enough. But so sometimes the mentor moves on. And then quite often those of you in the program will jump from one campus to another. So you may end up changing mentors, which is fine. The important thing is that you have someone there at your work site that's in a school leadership role that can help you debrief and digest. And also, ideally, it's someone that can give you access and opportunity to practice your leadership skills in the process. Bonnie, no, not for this class. The internship is a separate class. It's EDL 716. It's a 1-hour class for those in the education leadership program, the MEDL students. So no, it's not part of this class. Thanks for asking that question. Any other questions that you all have? I want to make sure you get your money's worth out of me tonight. Okay, well, then I will end the session for the evening. I think most of you that have reached out to me know this, and those of you that have had me in class certainly know this. If you reach out to me, you're going to hear back to me from me pretty quickly. So I want you to use me as you need me. My shelf life is getting extremely short. I put makeup on and fixed my hair for this evening, but you can probably tell I got a little age on me. One of my football players that I coached back when I was younger, that's the way he described it. He said, "Coach, you getting a little age on you." So one of my dear friends and colleagues is that I worked with and taught with at UT Austin. She's now working at the University of Washington. And she says, "Nelson, you and I are getting so old, we not only have mentees, we got grand mentees and great grand mentees." So yeah, I'm getting that kind of old. But what I do want to do is use what little life I have left in me to help folks like you be successful. Let's see, Dwyla posted, "I've not been a student for years." Oh yeah, you have. Don't worry, don't be nervous. Did I hear you correctly? If I submit, it's not correct. Yes. If you submit something and I don't think it is reflective of good critical analysis, or if there's something, many of you are probably going to get me, I'm probably going to ping you about the APA citation. So at least in the first couple of weeks, I'm going to point out what I think is lacking, and I'll let you know. You know, if you want to try again, try again. That's the nice thing about those Google Forms. And typically what I'll do is if you make a second run at it, I'll end up deleting the first one so that when everybody else gets to look at your work, they don't see that you've submitted twice. I'll try to do that. Okay, you know how to reach me. By the way, I know there's 54 of us all together, including me in this little learning tribe of ours. And I know that you all know a ton of people. And I know a lot of people, but I promise you that you don't know anybody that's more blessed than I am. And I count that among my many blessings, the opportunity, the fact that I get the opportunity to learn with and from you all during this term. So I want to learn from you, and I'm very intentional in things that I'm doing to try to make sure that there are some things that you can learn from me that'll help you be successful in your career, and not only your career, but your life in general. So use me as you need me. I will see you in cyberspace a week from tonight, but anytime in between, ping me and I'll get back to you. Have a good evening.